Shaykh Salmán. In 1266 AH, that is 1849 to 1850, the trusted messenger Shaykh Salmán first heard the summons of God, and his heart leapt for joy. He was then in Hindiyan. Irresistibly attracted, he walked all the way to Tehran, where with ardent love he secretly joined the believers. On a certain day he was passing through the bazaar with Ḥájí Muḥammad Alí, and the Farishas followed him and discovered where he lived. The next day police and Farishas came looking for him and took him to the chief of police. "Who are you?" the chief asked. "I am from Hindiyan," replied Salmán. "I have come to Tehran and am on my way to Khurasan for a pilgrimage to the shrine of Imam Rizā." "What were you doing yesterday," the chief asked, "with that man in the white robe?" Salmán answered, "I had sold him an abā the day before, and yesterday he was to pay me." "You are a stranger here," the chief said. "How could you trust him?" "A money changer guaranteed the payment," Salmán replied. He had in mind the respected believer Ḥájí Muḥammad Alí, money changer. The chief turned to one of his farashas and said, "Take him to the money changers and look into it." When they reached there, the farash went on ahead. "What was all this," he said, "about the sale of an abā and your vouching for the payment? Explain yourself." "I know nothing about it," the money changer replied. "Come along," said the farash to Salmán. "All is clear at last. You are a Baha'i." It happened that the turban which Salmán had on his head was similar to those worn in Shushtar. As they were passing a crossroads, a man from Shushtar came out of his shop. He embraced Salmán and cried, "Where have you been, Ḥájí Muḥammad Alí? When did you arrive? Welcome." Salmán replied, "I came here a few days ago, and now the police have arrested me." "What do you want with him?" the merchant asked the farash. "What are you after?" "He is a Baha'i," was the answer. "God forbid," cried the man from Shushtar. "I know him well. Ḥájí Muḥammad Alí is a God-fearing Muslim, a Shi'a, a devout follower of the Imam Ali." With this he gave the farash a sum of money, and Salmán was freed. They went into the shop, and the merchant began to ask Salmán how he was faring. Salmán told him, "I am not Ḥájí Muḥammad Alí." The man from Shushtar was dumbfounded. "You look exactly like him," he exclaimed. "You two are identical. However, since you are not he, give me back the money I paid the farash." Salmán immediately handed him the money, left, went out through the city gate, and made for Hindiyan. When Baha'u'llah arrived in Iraq, the first messenger to reach his holy presence was Salmán, who then returned with tablets addressed to the friends in Hindiyan. Once each year this blessed individual would set out on foot to see his well-beloved, after which he would retrace his steps, carrying tablets to many cities, Isfahan, Shiraz, Kashan, Tehran, and the rest. From the year 69 until the ascension of Baha'u'llah in 1309 AH, Salmán would arrive once a year, bringing letters, leaving with the tablets, faithfully delivering each one to him for whom it was intended. Every single year throughout that long period he came on foot from Persia to Iraq, or to Adrianople, or to the most great prison at Acha, came with the greatest eagerness and love, and then went back again. He had remarkable powers of endurance. He traveled on foot as a rule, eating nothing but onions and bread, and in all that time he moved about in such a way that he was never once held up, and never once lost a letter or a tablet. Every letter was safely delivered, every tablet reached his intended recipient. Over and over again in Isfahan he was subjected to severe trials, but he remained patient and thankful under all conditions, and earned from non-Baha'is the title of the Babi's Angel Gabriel. Throughout his entire life, Salmán rendered this momentous service to the cause of God, becoming the means of its spread and contributing to the happiness of the believers, annually bringing divine glad tidings to the cities and villages of Persia. He was close to the heart of Baha'u'llah, who looked upon him with especial favor and grace. Among the Holy Scriptures there are tablets revealed in his name. After the ascension of Baha'u'llah, Salmán remained faithful to the covenant, serving the cause with all his powers. Then, as before, he would come to the most great prison every year, delivering mail from the believers and returning with the answers to Persia. At last, in Shiraz, he winged his way to the kingdom of glory. From the dawn of history until the present day, there has never been a messenger so worthy of trust. There has never been a courier to compare with Salmán. He has left respected survivors in Isfahan, who, because of the troubles in Persia, are presently in distress. It is certain that the friends will see to their needs. Upon him be the glory of God, the All-Glorious. Unto him be salutations and praise. Mírzá Muḥammad Alí, the Afnán. In the days of Baha'u'llah, during the worst times in the most great prison, they would not permit any of the friends either to leave the fortress or to come in from the outside. Skew Cap, Akhajan, and the Sayyid Muhammad, the Antichrist of the Baha'i revelation, lived by the second gate of the city and watched all there at all times, day and night. Whenever they spied a Baha'i traveler, they would hurry away to the governor and tell him that the traveler was bringing in letters and would carry the answers back. The governor would then arrest the traveler, seize his papers, jail him, and drive him out. This became an established custom with the authorities and went on for a long time, indeed for 9 years, until, little by little, the practice was abandoned. It was at such a period that the Afnán, Ḥájí Mírzá Muḥammad Alí, that great bough of the holy tree, journeyed to Akka, coming from India to Egypt, and from Egypt to Marseille. One day I was up on the roof of the caravanserai. Some of the friends were there with me, and I was walking up and down. It was sunset. At that moment, glancing at the distant seashore, I observed that a carriage was approaching. "Gentlemen," I said, "I feel that a holy being is in that carriage." It was still far away, hardly within sight. "Let us go to the gate," I told them. "Although they will not allow us to pass through, we can stand there till he comes." I took 1 or 2 people with me, and we left. At the city gate I called to the guard, privately gave him something, and said, "A carriage is coming in, and I think it is bringing one of our friends. When it reaches here, do not hold it up, and do not refer the matter to the governor." He put out a chair for me, and I sat down. By this time the sun had set. They had shut the main gate too, but the little door was open. The gatekeeper stayed outside. The carriage drew up. The gentleman had arrived. What a radiant face he had! He was nothing but light from head to foot. Just to look at that face made one happy. He was so confident, so assured, so rooted in his faith, and his expression so joyous. He was truly a blessed being. He was a man who made progress day by day, who added every day to his certitude and faith, his luminous quality, his ardent love. He made extraordinary progress during the few days that he spent in the most great prison. The point is that when his carriage had come only part of the way from Haifa to Akka, one could already perceive his spirit, his light. After he had received the endless bounties showered on him by Baha'u'llah, he was given leave to go, and he traveled to China. There, over a considerable period, he spent his days mindful of God and in a manner conformable to divine good pleasure. Later he went on to India, where he died. The other revered Afnán and the friends in India felt it advisable to send his blessed remains to Iraq, ostensibly to Najaf, to be buried near the holy city, for the Muslims had refused to let him lie in their graveyard, and his body had been lodged in a temporary repository for safekeeping. Akha Sayyid Abdu'l-Bahá who was in Bombay at the time, was deputized to transport the remains with all due reverence to Iraq. There were hostile Persians on the steamship, and these people, once they reached Bushire, reported that the coffin of Mírzá Muḥammad Alí, the Baha'i, was being carried to Najaf for burial in the Vale of Peace, near the sacred precincts of the shrine, and that such a thing was intolerable. They tried to take his blessed remains off the ship, but they failed. See what the hidden divine decrees can bring about? His body came as far as Basra, and since that was a period when the friends had to remain in concealment, Sayyid Asadullah was obliged to proceed as if he were going on with the burial in Najaf, meanwhile hoping in one way or another to effect the interment near Baghdad, because, although Najaf is a holy city and always shall be, still the friends had chosen another place. God, therefore, stirred up our enemies to prevent the Najaf burial. They swarmed in, attacking the quarantine station, to lay hold of the body and either bury it in Basra or throw it into the sea or out on the desert sands. The case took on such importance that in the end it proved impossible to bring the remains to Najaf, and Sayyid Asadullah had to carry them on to Baghdad. Here, too, there was no burial place where the Afnán's body would be safe from molestation at enemy hands. Finally, the Sayyid decided to carry it to the shrine of Persia's Salmán the Pure, about 5 farsakhs out of Baghdad, and bury it in the Tisifan, close to the grave of Salmán, beside the palace of the Sasanian kings. The body was taken there, and that trust of God was, with all reverence, laid down in a safe resting place by the palace of Nashiravan. And this was destiny, that after a lapse of 1300 years, from the time when the throne city of Persia's ancient kings was trampled down, and no trace of it was left except for rubble and hills of sand, and the very palace roof itself had cracked and split, so that half of it toppled to the ground, this edifice should win back the kingly pomp and splendor of its former days. It is indeed a mighty arch. The width of its entryway is 52 paces, and it towers very high. Thus did God's grace and favor encompass the Persians of an age long gone, in order that their ruined capital should be rebuilt and flourish once again. To this end, with the help of God, events were brought about which led to the Afnán's being buried here, and there is no doubt that a proud city will rise up on this site. I wrote many letters about it, until at last the holy dust could be laid to rest in this place. Sayyid Asadullah would write me from Basra, and I would answer him. One of the public functionaries there was completely devoted to us, and I directed him to do all he could. Sayyid Asadullah informed me from Baghdad that he was at his wits' end, and had no idea where he could consign this body to the grave. "Wherever I might bury it," he wrote, "they will dig it up again." At last, praised be God, it was laid down in the very spot to which time and again the Blessed Beauty had repaired. In that place honored by his footsteps, where he had revealed tablets, where the believers of Baghdad had been in his company, that very place where the most great name was wont to stroll. How did this come about? It was due to the Afnán's purity of heart. Lacking this, all those ways and means could never have been brought to bear. Verily, God is the mover of heaven and earth. I loved the Afnán very much. Because of him I rejoiced. I wrote a long visitation tablet for him, and sent it with other papers to Persia. His burial site is one of the holy places where a magnificent Mashraq al-Askar must be raised up. If possible, the actual arch of the royal palace should be restored and become the house of worship. The auxiliary buildings of the house of worship should likewise be erected there. The hospital, the schools and university, the elementary school, the refuge for the poor and indigent, also the haven for orphans and the helpless, and the traveller's hospice. Gracious God, that royal edifice was once splendidly decked forth and fair, but there are spiders' webs today, where hung the curtains of gold brocade, and where the king's drums beat and his musicians played, the only sound is the harsh cries of kites and crows. quote, "This is verily the capital of the owl's realm, where thou wilt hear no sound, save only the echo of his repeated calls," unquote. That is how the barracks were when we came to Ḥájí. There were a few trees inside the walls, and on their branches, as well as up on the battlements, the owls cried all night long. How disquieting is the hoot of an owl! How it saddens the heart! From earliest youth until he grew helpless and old, that sacred bough of the holy tree, with his smiling face, shone out like a lamp in the midst of all. Then he leapt and soared to undying glory, and plunged into the ocean of light. Upon him be the breathings of his Lord, the All-Merciful. Upon him, lapped in the waters of grace and forgiveness, be the mercy and favor of God. Ḥájí Mírzá Ḥasan, the Afnán. Among the most eminent of those who left their homeland to join Baha'u'llah was Mírzá Ḥasan, the great Afnán, who, during the latter days, won the honor of immigrating and of receiving the favor and companionship of his Lord. The Afnán, related to the Bab, was specifically named by the Supreme Pen as an offshoot of the holy tree. When still a small child, he received his portion of bounty from the Bab, and showed forth an extraordinary attachment to that dazzling beauty. Not yet adolescent, he frequented the society of the learned, and began to study sciences and arts. He reflected day and night on the most abstruse of spiritual questions, and gazed in wonderment at the mighty signs of God as written in the Book of Life. He became thoroughly versed in even such material sciences as mathematics, geometry, and geography. In brief, he was well grounded in many fields, thoroughly conversant with the thought of ancient and modern times. A merchant by profession, he spent only a short period of the day and evening at his business, devoting most of his time to discussion and research. He was truly erudite, a great credit to the cause of God amongst leading men of learning. With a few concise phrases he could solve perplexing questions. His speech was laconic, but in itself a kind of miracle. Although he first became a believer in the days of the Bab, it was during the days of Baha'u'llah that he caught fire. Then his love of God burned away every obstructing veil and idle thought. He did all he could to spread the faith of God, becoming known far and wide for his ardent love of Baha'u'llah. Quote, "I am lost, O love, possessed and dazed. Love's fool am I in all the earth. They call me first among the crazed, though I once came first for wit and worth." Unquote. After the ascension of the Bab, he had the high honor of serving and watching over the revered and saintly consort of the Blessed Lord. He was in Persia, mourning his separation from Baha'u'llah, when his distinguished son became, by marriage, a member of the holy household. At this the Afnán rejoiced. He left Persia and hastened to the sheltering favor of his well-beloved. He was a man amazing to behold, his face so luminous that even those who were not believers used to say that a heavenly light shone from his forehead. He went away for a time and sojourned in Beirut, where he met the noted scholar Ḥájí Mírzá. This personage warmly praised the erudition of the great Afnán in various circles, affirming that an individual of such wide and diverse learning was rare throughout the East. Later on, the Afnán returned to the Holy Land, settling near the mansion of Baha'i and directing all his thoughts toward aspects of human culture. Much of the time he would occupy himself with uncovering the secrets of the heavens, contemplating in their detail the movement of the stars. He had a telescope with which he would make his observations every night. He lived a happy life, carefree and light of heart. In the neighborhood of Baha'u'llah his days were blissful, his nights bright as the first morning in spring. But then came the beloved's departure from this world. The Afnán's peace was shattered, his joy was changed to grief. The supreme affliction was upon us, separation consumed us, the once bright days turned black as night, and all those roses of other hours were dust and rubble now. He lived on for a little while, his heart smoldering, his eyes shedding their tears, but he could not bear the longing for his well-beloved, and in a little while his soul gave up this life and fled to the Eternal One, passed into the heaven of abiding reunion, and was immersed beneath an ocean of light. Upon him be the most great mercy, plenteous bounty, and every blessing, as the ages and cycles roll on. His honored tomb is in Acha at the Manshiyeh.